Hi, I'm Cindra. Welcome to my studio. I wanted to teach you just some real quick little pretty watercolor flowers. So let's get going right now. I wanted to show you how to do what I call my dot flowers. And the dot flowers can look just very delicate and beautiful. And they can also have a very just kind of abstract, loose look. And here's some more colors and delicate. So let me just kind of bring you through how they work. And then I also want to show you some quick roses to play along with those. Hopefully I can demystify it. So let's get going. I have a slightly pink tinted water so that hopefully you can see it. But what I'm going to show you with my famous dot flowers is I love to find, I think I'm going to start with Quinn, Rose Quinn. Here we go. I've got a size 8 brush. Make it just a little bit more damp. Quinacridone rose is such a beautiful color. I think I'm going to start with these 3 little dots, just like that. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a triangle like that with water only. Resist the urge to touch those dots where the water is or where the paint is. So I'm starting off. So you're not going to touch them until you get close. So I'm starting off. And again, I'm trying to make it look a little extra bright. There you go. I think maybe you can see it better this way. I've got a little bit of dirty water with a little bit of a pinkish tint to it, which will hopefully help you. And then I'm just going to touch and scrub so there's not a dot there. And that is my first petal. Pretty, right? This is all about letting the water work for you. Instead of forcing the paint, you're letting the water do it for you. I'm going to keep the side view just a moment longer, and I'm just reaching in for the petals and letting that water roll slightly down. You can see from the side view, there's even a few of those little beautiful, lovely veins that are all about flowers and delicate little transparent, cool things with those petals. So let's go ahead and come down here. And again, I'm getting some fresh water. It's not drippy, drippy wet, but it's pretty darn damp. And I'm scrubbing into the dot just so that I don't have a circle hiding under it unless I want it. So those are my 3 petals. And I'm going to come back and add a few more little colors. But before I do, I think I'm going to start on the rose with you. So we give that just a couple minutes to dry. I'm a watercolor artist, by the way. I'm new on YouTube. Thanks for stopping by. I've taught quite a bit along the Myrtle Beach, what we call the Grand Strand area. And I'm kind of excited to enter the world of YouTube. And also I have a new Patreon site called Cindra's Watercolor Studio, if you're interested in just checking it out and see what you think about it. The full tutorial for these types of flowers is in fact posted on there right now. So for the rose, I think I'm going to go and use the colors you have, obviously. When I have my Zoom classes for people around the world, I give them a list of 12 colors, and I have that included in the Patreon. But then there's those second tier colors that are just fun to get. They're not necessary, but they're fun. So let me introduce you to my roses. You've probably seen some of these loose roses before, but again, I want to make it just a little bit easier. I'm still on my size 8, but I'm using the very tip of it. This is a round brush with a nice tip. So the first thing I'm doing, and sticking with Quins, I'm using Quin Red. These are both Daniel Smiths today. So I'm doing somewhat of a yin-yang sign. So roses are tighter as they are towards the center, and then they get looser as they peel out, right? So in this case, I'm starting with a tiny little tightness of the swirls, and I call it kind of like the yin yang sign, if you know. And they're different all the time. Doesn't have to look exactly like that. Mine never look the same. So whatever you come up with, I'm sure will be great. One thing I like to do is I like to taper the edges, and then the center I press down further on my brush. I also overlap. I don't want it to look like it's a bullseye for a target practice. And you'll notice I'm just going around as it gets more open, I'm pressing down further. The other thing I want to do is simply tip maybe a 1/16 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch into the water. I'm just tipping it down into it. And that means there's going to be less pigment, more water. So as I'm building this rose, now I've got this really beautiful, lightweight, lovely pinkish red instead of the darker red. I think this is such a pretty color. So there's one of my roses. Now, one thing you can do, you can either do it with a color you used or a different color. I'm just going to stick with a Quin red, is that you can tap a few places while it's still damp. Again, taper out. Don't leave it too boxy. You can also connect a couple spots if you would like. And that's my idea of just a soft, pretty, loose, easy rose. I have a couple really cool techniques when I add the leaf by it. And I maybe, if I have time, I'll come back and show you. Otherwise, do please consider popping over to my Patreon site. That's new too. I've done Zoom classes, but haven't entered either of these worlds. Instagram, YouTube, hi if you're on either one of those, and then Patreon. Here's what I completed. And if you can see it, that's one of my little tricks with the leaves of how I put texture in it. So there you go. There is my loose, soft watercolor. Now I'm going to go back and finish my little dot flower. So let me this time go to, let's do some opera pink. So I started out with Quin Rose, and now I'm going to add just a couple of other little pretty. I think I'll do, even though I don't like even numbers, this is just calling for it because it almost looks like a pinwheel, doesn't it? So I'm once again, and to make it look more natural for any flower, whatever you're doing that has petals, cosmos, whatever, have some of the petals a different length and width. So I'm going in there, I'm making these a little wider and floppier, if that's a term, and just going in. And there you go. I just kind of played with that, but I'm trying very, very hard to not let my wanting to manipulate the paint to taking over the power of water. If you let water paint for you, it'll always do a better job than you do when you're doing something like this. So let that water roll around and do its thing. And now I'm going to go ahead and put a little something pretty in the middle. I love a variety of shades, but just for today, let's go ahead and do yellow ochre. And I like, if I'm still using the 8, which I'm just going to do the whole thing in 8, I just love tapping it in and kind of facing upward, like it's stamen with a little bit of texture. And for the area that's wet within your flower, you're going to see it just have fun kind of blending out. And I love that look. And the parts that are dry aren't going to go as much. I might help this a bit just by tipping my paper and just kind of letting it do what it wants to do, leaving it wet. Same thing over here and here. So there is my dot flower. I hope you enjoyed it. With these dot flowers, it's fun to just add sometimes even petals that are 3 shades. And also it's fun to add a little stem and some leaves as well for both of them. But I just wanted to give you a real quickie idea. Again, here is the rose with some cool little leaf patterns. And here are a couple of dot flowers I'll leave you with to see the variety that you can do. They're very light and delicate. I try not to get too heavy-handed, and when I do, then that's an interesting look too. Here I am with making the stamen a little bit tighter. Here I am flicking some water on it, some light water on it, just to give you an idea of how fun they are. And here's one that I actually just did in Patreon that has a really modern, interesting look to it. And I really enjoy this as well. They're a lot of fun to add to your loose paintings of different flowers and shades. And I hope that was kind of fun for you. I think what I would probably do is, as it dries, I would probably add something dark, just for a little contrast. Normally I'd wait a little longer, but I just grabbed my number 6. And I think just for fun, I'm going to add just a little bit of burnt umber. Burnt sienna would be pretty too, though, right? Just a little bit of burnt umber, just to give it a little bit of a focal point and where the center of it is. Beautiful bouquet of these, or even just a grouping of 3 or 5, look really pretty too. So I hope you had fun with this. I know it's a quickie, but I hope to see you more. I'm excited to be here with you. And I'm looking forward to sharing more tips and tricks that I'm all about and really enjoy. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for popping in.